Good morning, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you might be doing. We wish to welcome you to the Silverlight Show. The Silverlight shines to illuminate that which lies hidden in darkness. For those of you tuning in today, we welcome you in. Where I live, they're building a 55-foot or 16-meter high statue, and this has the residents in an uproar. Now, what is causing this uproar? Ignorance. You see, it's of, and I apologize if I get this wrong, the Sikh deity Huanan. Again, apologies if I pronounce that wrong. Huanan is known for being very clever, and his role in the mythology is really, really outstanding. I mean, he's their monkey god. He can transform to a monkey and back, symbolizing once again how clever he is and how nimble he is. He's a force for good. He's always trying to rescue a maiden or, you know, help help the big creator gods and stuff like that out. Generally an honorable symbol. I doubt anybody who's actually looking at the statue considered any of that. Now let me be honest, when the statue first went up, I didn't like it. It had nothing to do with who it was the god of or whatever it was. It just did not look very nice. But it's a year later and it's coming together. It looks half decent. I mean, they changed it from his loincloth to um, almost like a half kilt is what I want to call it. So that way nobody would be running under. They're trying to see, you know, what the god had to offer. The important point is this is not being done on public land. It's not like they went to the city, although I'm sure municipal tax dollars were involved and they probably got a grant, and I got no problem with that. If those grants exist, by all means they should be taking advantage of them, because that's a point of religious freedom, is everybody gets treated equally. But there's people raising an uproar on this. Here's the funny part. Okay, 55 feet or 16 meters is pretty darn tall. Um, 2, 3 stories. I'm just shooting off the top of my head here. But where it is, it's not in the most trafficked place. It's it's not like it's jutting out on a highway where its arm is waving you into a casino or anything. No, it's a fairly respectable depiction of Huanan, apologies again, who's just waving. And it's not like a 1930s wave. You can tell that this is very clearly, a friendly gesture. We live in changing times. Um, 30 years ago, I can see this being a problem because the area was being developed. And maybe somebody would say that will discourage some residents. But the area is developed. And it's a church building on its own land. They got the permits. They presented the design. They did everything they were supposed to. There's nothing illegal whatsoever about this statue. But people are complaining. And of course, they're complaining about, we don't need this wokeness around here. How the hell is that wokeness? It's people celebrating their own culture. 30-ish years ago, down the road from my house, where I lived at the time, they built a mega mosque. I mean, this thing is gigantic. And you know what? It fills up. Do you know how many problems I've had with that mosque in all this time? Zero. Well, sometimes on Friday when it lets out, they block traffic, but they've been smart enough to, I don't know whether it's a rent a police officer or whether they actually get a police officer established, but they make sure they do everything safe. How are you going to find a problem with that? There's a pub across the street. I used to go there and meet my friends there, and You'd see them worshiping. There was no interference. They were glad to be there. The pub was glad to be there. Everybody was happy to be there. I would say a mega mosque is a lot more distracting simply because of the amount of people going in and out than a bloody statue. And you know what? If this had been almost anybody else, I don't want to say a Christian statue because some of them are around, but to be honest, we have had a Jehovah's Witness. Is it Jehovah's Witness? The Mormons at any rate. We've had the Mormons with this gigantic statue of what I believe to be Gabriel. Not 100% sure on their mythology, aside from what some friendly Mormons, and I mean actually friends that are Mormons, not the people knocking on your door. What they've told me is it's Gabriel. He's blowing this big trumpet. I don't think there's ever been an accident attributed to it. And this thing is sitting on top of a massive temple. I don't know how high that thing is, but it's got to be bigger than this, statue of Huanan. Nobody had a problem with it. And I don't think anybody ever will. And it's a major intersection that it's stationed at. So if it's not causing problems with that golden trumpet, and now I'm curious, literally while I'm sitting here talking to you, I'm curious how they keep it polished and upkeep. I know it's not real gold. I'm not going to try to go up there and steal it and become a multimillionaire. It's probably like a really nice brass or whatever, and somebody has to go up and polish it. But that's the thing that people don't realize. These statues, it's quite a commitment from the religious community. Sorry, these statues, these churches, it's a commitment from that religious community. They do get tax breaks, but you still got to pay for the building upkeep. And with statues, you got to pay for them to look nice. Because we just leave it. Of course, in 20 years, 30 years, whatever it's going to be, the concrete, the steel, stuff like that, it's going to start cracking because of the weather. This is Canada after all, so we get, 30-degree summers and minus 30 degrees winters. And this is literally the weather that stopped the German armies in World War II. So it's understandable that there's going to be some upkeep. Now I'm actually curious to see how they do that upkeep. But you see the difference between my reaction and the grumpy people who are like, oh, I don't like it because it depicts somebody else's religion. My reaction, like I said, at first I didn't like the way it looked, but it was the process of construction they were using. Never seen anything like it before. I gave it a chance. I'm like, let's see what they do with it. And now it actually looks interesting. I would go so far if it wasn't out of the way, it might actually become a small tourist attraction. Think about it, a 16-meter, 55-foot tall statue to a god. If I was of that religion, I would definitely be curious to see it. Maybe I bring the family and the kids. We'd stop off at whatever choice of restaurant that you want. And the city ultimately is benefiting from this. Not directly, but there's undeniably benefits to it. I understand we are in a changing age. It's no longer the era where, depending on which area you were in, and my city had a brilliant idea, which was to divide everything up by section. So the A sections, all the streets start with A. The B section, all the streets start with B. They gave that up around, I think, G or H. Yeah, I don't think there's an I section, but I could be wrong. And these people are hearkening back to that time. I liked it because it made it easier to navigate the city, but I'm not crying any tears over it. I'll save my tears for more important things. We can't assume that this is 1970s, Western educated, industrialized, rich, democratic nations anymore. People are coming here. There's no legal reason to stop them coming here, provided they're willing to go through and, make follow the requirements, get their education, get their equivalency. Heck, they're welcome. You know what? They're going to bring things with them. Imagine our life without the pierogi, or pierogi, depending on how you pronounce it. Imagine our life without the hot dog, the humble hot dog. Imagine our life without pasta. This is all stuff that was brought over by immigrants. You know what? There's still traces of that prejudice there. The Irish and redheads have no soul and stuff like that. Of course, redheads have a soul like everybody else. And after they got used to the Irish, then the Italians started coming over. And hey, oh, and they have the same jokes for all these years. This is how you can instantly tell prejudice. Is they use the same lame jokes that they used back in the 1930s. Racists are not creating new jokes, which is a good thing. I don't think I want to hear racists going out on the comedy circuit and trying to show how good they can be at comedy. But the same token, you've heard all this crap before. A priest and rabbi and, other person walking to a bar. Yeah, it's been done a million times. Substitute animals. This joke is just as funny and you're not offending anybody. Hey, did you hear about the Italian helicopter? It goes whoop, whoop, whoop. It's not really funny. Hey, you hear about the Chinese machine gun? It goes ching, ching, ching. It's not really funny. Maybe in grade school we laughed at it, but that was the 1970s. I think in 2023 we can open our minds a little more to what we're seeing and experiencing. And again, this was all paid for, at least 99% of it, or probably in the 90s, was paid for by the church itself. Now imagine you're on your own property and you want to put up a statue of, everybody knows those statue of the little boy either spitting or spouting water into the fountain. I've always found that offensive. But you know what? It's your property. It's a capitalist system. There's nothing anyone can do to stop you from putting that up. You want to put... Actually, I just realized, nobody put any Santa Claus decorations out. Huh. But then again, this area is not really big on celebrating holidays. Literally just looked outside and I'm like, hey, there's nothing there. But you want to put a big Santa statue out in front to celebrate Christmas? Got no problem with that. But in return, it would be extremely, extremely hypocritical for me to have any complaints about this statue. I've said it before. I'll say it 1,000 times. I will say it until I'm blue in the face if I have to. We live in 2023. Immigrants are not the worst evil in the world. As a matter of fact, a lot of them do a lot of positive things. We would be in a lot of trouble if doctors weren't coming over to practice, and it's a nightmare for them to get resettled and recertified just so that way that they can get the patients that they want to get. It's discouraging to see people abandoning the immigrant train. Now, while I will agree, should probably be more restrictions on it. I won't fight you too hard on that. Like, okay, the doctor comes home, he's going to bring his family, and he can't predict what's going to happen with the rest of the family, but you're getting a doctor. Their cousin comes over, who's a distant cousin, and he's the town bully because, he was lucky enough to be 6'4" while everybody else is 5'9". It happens. We all knew that person in school. That's the thing you can't really predict. But the person still wants to come to Canada because they want to get away with that. Maybe they're trying to turn over a new leaf. You can't say anything till the person's here. And then you have to trust the system. Look at that statue. The system works. because they submitted a design, they did all that hard work to get approval, and they're paying for it. I call that a win. And like I said, I can see tourist dollars coming in. So if you have a problem with it, then maybe you should go and try to get a statue erected that appeals to your beliefs, whether they're political, um, scientific, although science isn't really a belief. Some people have beliefs about science. Whatever it might be, maybe that should be your calling in life. Instead of sitting back and complaining, do something. Don't harm what other people have done, but maybe in your favorite park, you could fundraise, you could organize, you could do what it takes, and you could get a statue of Nikolai Tesla. Now, you're going to get complaints because Nikolai Tesla was not the most perfect person in the world. But you know what? Considering the time period that he lived in, he wasn't terrible by a long shot. But that's your homework. If it really offends you, do better. Maybe your statue can attract some people too, and maybe I can open a coffee stand there and really live out capitalism where I'm making as much money as possible. So that's your homework. We hope that you enjoyed this episode of the Silverlight Show. If you did, please like, share, subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. Don't forget to leave a comment down in the comment section. Ring the bell so that way you can be notified every time we publish a new episode. We hope you have a fantastic day.